Joan Quinn, a member of the California Arts Council and Beverly Hills Arts Commission, is the former West Coast editor of Andy Warhol's Interview magazine and society editor of the Herald Examiner. Her cover stories can be read in Venice and Detour magazines, and she is a contributing editor to California Apparel News. For the next half hour, Joan will bring you inside news and views on society, art, film, and the exhilarating worlds of these multifaceted people. Here is Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and thanks for being with us on Joan Quinn, etc. Recently in New York, I visited the newly refurbished Park Avenue showroom of jeweler Seaman Schepps. After Mr. Schepps' death in 1972, the business continued under the direction of his daughter, Patricia Vail, and his niece, Diane Dillon. Both of those women designed jewelry using Schepps as an influence and as an inspiration. Jay Bauer bought the business and will tell us a little bit about the Schepps legacy. So watch as we interview Jay Bauer. Hi, I'm at Seaman Schepps in New York with Jay Bauer, the owner. They're calling this the new Seaman Schepps. Jay, why is that?
Well, they call it the new Seaman Schepps only for one reason, that it is a new ownership. But we intend to continue in the old traditions of Seaman Schepps. So in a sense, it is new, but we are continuing in the old way, which was fine quality, great workmanship, and beautiful styles.
What did you do with the showroom?
Obviously, we did some major redecoration here because the shop that had been here for, I think, 35 years needed to be sprucing up a little bit. However, we have tried to maintain, Joan, the basic character of what the store stood for.
And what did it? Just tell us what Seaman Schepps really stood for.
Well, I think he stood for, like, I think he was an incredible American designer that was innovative, and his bold styles, his use of colored stones were legendary. He was innovative. He was a contemporary, probably as you know, of Fulco Verdura. He pioneered in the mid-50s shells, combined seashells with stones, cabochons, and made just incredible high-fashion jewelry that was then the rage of New York City and of people who were interested in this type of jewelry. The same way as it is today. I think his jewelry is as much up to date today as it was 30 or 40 years ago.
Why did you happen to pick Seaman Schepps? How did you find Seaman Schepps to buy?
That's an interesting story. I have always been interested in jewelry. I collect art, Joan, and I've been very much interested in jewelry. Possibly my great-grandfather in Spain, I have Spanish and I have German, and I was brought up in Spain. He was a jeweler in Madrid. As a consequence, my mother was fortunate enough to get from her mother a lot of jewelry, and I have always been exposed to jewelry, so it has always fascinated me. I collected it, and passing by here on Park Avenue since I moved from Japan to New York, I was always fascinated by the interesting objects and jewelry that was at display at Seaman Schepps.
Did you find it sculptural? Did it appeal to your art?
In a sense, of course, I see it not just as a piece of jewelry, but as a piece of art. I think his style, the use of stones, the combination, the objects. I mean,
tell us a little bit about the use of stones, because I think we can see it right here, how he combined different colors.
Take, for instance, this bracelet here, this cuff, actually, that was made for Mrs. Wenner-Gren, the wife of a Swedish industrialist. You can see this is a piece that he made in the 40s, and he used white gold, platinum, yellow gold, combined it with an array of beautiful cabochon, emeralds, rubies, sapphires, and that is just so typical of the kind of work that he did.
From the 40s, would you say?
Yes,
40s
from the 40s. From the 40s. This ring, for instance, also is extremely popular. It was one of the important designs that he made, and that was used so many times by so many people. Again, you can see the beautiful combination of color, stones, which each one is kind of individual, because he used emeralds, rubies, sapphires, pearls, and a woman could come and just choose any kind of color combination to suit her taste, and have it made to order. Same thing as you can see on this magnificent necklace.
Tell us about this. We see a rendering behind.
Right.
How do you start making a piece of jewelry?
It was very important. It's very important. I think sometimes, especially for custom-made pieces, it's very important for a woman to be able to visualize exactly, or as close as possible, as to what she's going to get and how she's going to look in it. Therefore, Seaman Schepps, and we are continuing in this tradition, always will prepare for this kind of special orders a rendering to show the size of the necklace or the object or the earrings or whatever we are making up, the colors of the stones, so that everyone can really see as close as possible what the final piece of jewelry will look like. We also are prepared to make certain molds or set up the stones so that everything can be seen before it is finally assembled.
All of these things, the way I always saw pieces of Seaman Schepps, because I have always kind of followed his work.
You yourself, of course, have a lot of pieces.
But I've always
fortunate.
I've followed his work. It seemed to me that he would give up a little bit on quality of a stone to make sure that the art was there.
You're quite correct. I think that Seaman Schepps did not stand for using a deflawless diamond or a VVS1 diamond or the highest quality of an emerald. I think his emphasis was obviously on producing very high fashion, high style jewelry that had the effect, but where people didn't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the greatest look.
I think that's what happened during the 40s. We had very big shoulders and very kind of masculine clothes, and they would plop these huge, this rooster or something like this fish, and it would look great, or a big cuff.
Of course, you're quite correct, but I think what is very important and noteworthy to mention is that I think the kind of woman that bought Seaman Schepps is a kind of woman then and also today who is confident about the way she looks, what kind of clothes she wears, and she's not afraid to really show it off well and to put a big, bold piece of jewelry to go with it.
Well, talking about the 40s and the 50s, which I know is important to you and actually believing in Seaman Schepps, have you ever thought of displaying or doing a museum show?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up, Joan, because actually what we want to do here is not only to continue to manufacture great jewelry. We have, I would like to mention this also, over 600 of the original molds. We have
a mold over here. These are molds, aren't they?
These are pieces made of molds.
And over here, this?
Right, this is the waxing of the bamboo link that was made for a very important neck bracelet that you can see here, which again was made for Mrs. Wenegren, who had a magnificent taste and knew exactly what she wanted. This also belonged to her, which is a magnificent
I can't
necklace.
believe how there's so much going on in one bracelet, and it starts with the mold here.
It starts with the mold of the links. As you can see there, I don't know if you can pick this up exactly, but every gold link is in the shape of a bamboo, a piece of bamboo. The pieces, we will of course make this kind of bracelet in similar versions for clients. However, I would like to say that each one is really going to be unique from the point of view that the stones used, the size, the object that will be at the center will always be something different. So none of them will be exactly the same. Each of them will be a unique piece of work.
But you'll be making them today and this year. How will people know that this particular piece was made in the 40s?
It is an interesting point, and I must say that in no way are we trying to produce jewelry and where later on, maybe in 10 years, people will confuse and say, well, was this made in the 40s or was it made in the 50s or was it made now? We will do two things. First of all, we are going to improve on some of the quality levels. We're using 18 karat gold versus 14 karat gold. It is important because we have an interesting a large clientele also in Europe, where the use of 14 karat gold is really almost not permitted. Some countries do not even allow the importation of jewelry unless it is at least 18 karat gold. However, the most important thing is we are going to use a new stamp. As I'm taking over the shop, we have used a seashell, for which it was so famous for, and this insignia would be part of all the stamping in the pieces that we're making.
So
they will also be numbered, and they will be they will be numbered and recorded, so we can later on, even in 10 or 20 years from now, exactly know when it was made and even for whom it was originally made. So there will be no confusion in that department.
Seaman was followed in the shop by his daughter, Patricia Schepps Vale, who also made jewelry and had a different stamp.
Yes.
She used PSV.
For Seaman Schepps, that's correct. So here again, there has been a distinction has been made from her father to when she took over the store to now when we will take it over.
A lot of movie stars wore that jewelry in the 40s and 50s and 60s. And I think if you watch some of those old films, you'll notice Seaman Schepps jewels on the clothes. When we come back, we're going to have a great movie star who actually made movies during that same era. So don't go away. When we come back, we'll be with Marie Windsor. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and we're back with actress Marie Windsor. Marie has made over 70 films, and when I asked her if she could name them all, she said she couldn't, but I bet if we went through the list, we'd get a good portion of them. Because of all the motion pictures and the numerous TV and radio shows, Marie won award after award, including Best Supporting Actress by Look magazine, for her performance in Stanley Kubrick's The Killing. We knew about all of her film, but I was surprised when I read the bio that she had been in so many pieces of theater works. Marie, when did the theater work come, before or during the film?
Well, when I went to Brigham Young University, I did several plays there, and so the stage was always in my heart, and I always was aware of the fact that was a good place to train. And when I came out here and studied with Maria Spenskaya, after a few years of trying to get a good start in the motion picture industry, and having failed that, people kept saying New York, New York. So I got myself cast in a play called Henry Duffy's Merry-Go-Rounders. It was really a vaudeville show, the last of the Henry Duffy's Merry-Go-Rounders. And we opened in Detroit and played Washington and Buffalo and ended up in New York, which was what I wanted to do.
So you did do the films and the theater simultaneously?
Yes, I did small parts out here before I went east. Then I got into radio there, and I did about 200 radio shows there, and then I got cast in Follow the Girls with Gertrude Nielsen. So I'm proud to say I was actually on Broadway at one time.
How did you get into Uspenskaya's acting school? That was a very, very difficult thing to accomplish at that time.
Well, my family had looked in the back of the Cosmopolitan magazine to find a dramatic school for me. And that somebody had recommended that to them, and I don't know why, because nobody in our family were theater people, but they saw this name and with a little research found out the magazine, I guess, was old because they said the school was in New York. On further research, we found out it was in Hollywood. So my folks brought me down here to be interviewed, and Madame accepted me. So I was with her for 6 months.
Did you always want to act? Was it always in the back of your mind?
Yes. When I was a little girl, my grandmother used to take me all the silent movies and read aloud to me, and nobody wanted to sit near us because of this, but I wanted to be another Clara Bow.
Well, you did a good job. You probably were in more movies than she ever was. Was yours the typical Hollywood discovery once you came to Hollywood?
No, I was never really discovered. Well, or maybe I've been discovered all my life. Through my career, I keep getting breaks in wonderful ways when I say, this is it, now I'm really going to be a big star. And everybody says, you know, this is the movie that's going to do it. And something kind of sad always happens. Like, for instance, when I did Narrow Margin, everybody was so thrilled with that picture and the work I did in it. Dick Fleischer directed it, who later became a very, very fine, well-known director. And Howard Hughes, at about that time, got interested in buying RKO, and the picture belonged to RKO, and he fell in love with this little movie. And he wanted to make it into an A picture because he was so thrilled with it. So he tried to put $40,000 into it to make an A picture. End of story. He kept it hidden for 18 months, and then it just sneaked out quietly.
Oh, so there it was, another one of those
Just
situations.
another one of those things.
In 1992, a film fact story describes you as, and I'm going to read it, a tall, leggy, sultry beauty with slightly sleepy eyes, who has saved many a B film from oblivion with her strong portrayal of independent women. I know the strong, sultry beauty part of it and the long legs because I've seen them. But did you like portraying independent women, or did you have different roles?
Well, I liked anything that had to do with acting. I would have rather played the parts of Greer Garson, but my physical looks did not help in that direction. And I found I was very successful in doing those roles, so, you know, why not do a good thing over and over?
Did you think about doing anything else? Did you have any other roles? You did an Abbott and Costello movie. Was
Yes.
that a comedy?
That was a comedy. I love comedy. I never really got into it as much as I would have liked to have. But that, yes, that was great comedy, and they taught me so much about timing.
You have a very long marriage to Jack Hupp, and he's a very strong person. Do you play the independent woman at home?
Oh, yes, I have my moments. I also play the passive woman at home. It depends on what's needed at the moment.
I was going to talk about some of the films you were in and ask you if you could remember some little stories about, say, this one who is with
John
Garfield.
Garfield. I always call him Jules. Everybody did that got to know him well. There have been two movie stars in my life that I feel extremely grateful to. I was about 1 inch or 2 inches taller than both Julie Garfield and George Raft, and it didn't seem to make a darn bit of difference to them. We worked it out on the set. Either he stood on a box or I learned to walk with my knees bent. They were both so dear to work with.
I was going to ask you because your husband is very, very tall.
Yeah,
so
6'5".
He's the perfect mate. But was that a problem for a tall, leggy woman like you?
Yes, it used to be a lot worse than it is now. Now it's kind of fashionable sometimes to have a woman taller than a man. But, you know, Alan Ladd and Bob Cummings, they had marks on the casting director's walls that don't let anybody in the girls in the office that are taller than this mark.
That's what I wondered. Is that true?
Oh, yes.
Here's George Raft.
They're a very sweet man.
Did the hat make him a couple of inches taller in this?
Yes, that helped, but Louise Jensen, a very talented designer, had to design a full white billowing chiffon dress so I could tango with him with my knees bent.
To keep you at the right?
Yes, I wore ballet shoes.
Did you do a lot of dancing? Did you keep in shape, dancing, singing?
I never got to the singing part, but I studied dancing from the time I was about 8 years old all the way through college and after I got to Hollywood. But I was too tall to be a showgirl, Earl Carroll told me, and too tall to be a pony and too short to be a showgirl.
Ah.
So I never found a career in that area.
Here's John Wayne.
Dear man, I did 2 movies with him. I played his ex-wife in a movie. And the last I did, I think that was about 1974, this movie called Cahill U.S. Marshal. And I played a sympathetic role in this one for a change.
Did you socialize with any of your leading men along the way? I mean, you were obviously married at that point, but did you?
No, I wasn't married.
Oh, you weren't?
No.
Did you date any of your leading men then?
I had a couple of dates with John Garfield. He took me to 2 different parties. I wouldn't call that exactly dating during the movie.
But was that kind of the thing to do at that time when you were married?
It depends on if you like the person, I suppose.
And how did you feel about those?
Well, that was perfectly acceptable. I mean, they were nice people. A lot of people I've worked on sets with that I wouldn't think of going out with because I didn't think they were nice people. But
we don't have a picture of Marlon Brando, but tell us a little bit about your work with him.
I was never on the same set with him. I worked in a movie he was in, but I was on the set with him, but I didn't actually work in any scenes with him.
And then the last one that you brought is really beautiful, 1964.
David Niven. What an adorable, funny man he was.
That's a beautiful set, too.
Yeah.
You look gorgeous.
I had one scene with David, opened the movie in Bedtime Story, and he was just a dear to work with.
Marie, you've been very active in working within the industry and helping other actors and actresses. I know you've been a real leading force in SAG and helping founding the Film Society. What was that about?
Well, first of all, in case you don't know, I served on the Screen Actors Guild board for 25 years.
No, I didn't know that.
That was some stint. But about 20...
How many meetings did you have to go to?
Lost count, because I always was on several committees. Anyway, about 20 years ago, the board decided that we should have a film society. So Monty Markham and I, and then another lady named Barbara Barron, went out and did a lot of research with the help of the Writers Guild to find out how to start one of these. And then Monty Markham, who had been appointed the chair and I co-chair, left the board for some reason, and I ended up being the chair of the Film Society. So we had to put it all together, and it's been a tremendous success ever since.
What do they actually do? Because they say the membership, SAG, of course, is Screen Actors Guild, and what did the society really focus in on?
It's just a membership to see films, to keep actors aware of what is being on the market today, and we try to show movies that show good acting.
Oh, so you actually handpick?
It's an educational kind of thing, too.
Well, they thought enough of you to give you a Lifetime Achievement Award for that.
Yeah, that was lovely. George Montgomery designed that award, the Ralph Morgan Award it's called.
As an artist, you mean he designed it?
Mm-hmm. And it was interesting because I was on the committee, the awards committee, when they decided to create this award, and Tony Caruso and I went through a lot of designs and presented them to the committee to see what the award would look like. And I said, you know, George Montgomery is very clever. Maybe he'll give us some ideas because he's a magnificent sculptor. We went to him, and he created this and sculpted and cast it for us for nothing.
Oh, that was great.
And then I ended up getting one.
And do you have it in your house?
Yes.
How big is it?
It's there's a disc with comedy and tragedy on about that big around with a circle holding it, and it's on a stand about this big. It stands like that.
So big enough for us to see,
Oh,
big
yes.
enough to be noticed.
I should have brought it.
I wish that would have been a great idea. You do a lot of work also for the Motion Picture
Television Fund?
Yes.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I used to serve on do a lot of charity work, but the only one I'm working on now, I'm on the board of the Motion Picture and Television Fund, which I think is a great honor to be on because it's such a worthwhile cause. Have you ever been out to the Motion Picture Fund home?
No.
Oh, Joan, I must take you out there. It's the most glorious campus for people who can afford to live there and people who can't afford, and a magnificent hospital.
Where is it located?
In Woodland Hills.
Oh, well, we'll go. That's not very far. We have a few minutes left, and you were talking about George Montgomery being such a great artist, but we know that Marie Windsor is also an artist, and on our set, gracing our set, may I say, is a beautiful still life that you painted. When did you start painting?
Well, I've been drawing and painting all my life, but I took it up seriously in the early 60s, and I studied with a woman named Andrea Day, and I painted seriously for about 5 years. I haven't been doing it lately, but I'm going to do it again soon.
And besides painting, I think you mentioned you were going to write an autobiography. What are you going to tell in that?
Well, I'm not going to tell all the fellas I went to bed with, I can tell you that.
You probably have to write volumes now.
Yeah, so when people have approached me about doing a book, they usually want to know that, because I've dated some very interesting men in my life, including Clark Gable. But I feel that if my life isn't interesting enough without that, then nobody needs to read it.
Have you started yet?
I've done 2 chapters.
Oh, you have? Oh, this is really in the works. Well,
I'm very slow at it, but it's working.
We want to thank Marie Windsor for being with us today. Marie, it's really been great. Thanks for coming. You look beautiful.
I feel like I talk too much.
No, we loved it. And
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for being with us on Joan Quinn, etc. We'll see you next time.